Hello and welcome to Africa News. I'm Ketavan Gorgistani. In an exclusive interview with France 24, the Malian government has officially confirmed it had released several Islamist prisoners with ties to Al-Qaeda in order to secure the release of French hostage Serge Lazarevic. The French government has neither confirmed nor denied the swap. In Burundi, the registration process for next year's election is being called into question. The opposition says the process is tainted by fraud. And we'll have a report on the state of Françafrique, the murky network tying France and its former colonies in Africa. We start with this France 24 exclusive. It's the first official confirmation by the Malian government that several Islamist prisoners linked to Al-Qaeda were in fact freed in exchange for the release of France's last remaining hostage, Serge Lazarevic. Since his release earlier this week, questions have swirled around the possible deal with his captors. Our reporter Nicolas Germain met with the Malian Justice Minister, Mohamed Ali BATHILY, earlier today. Here's what he had to say.
Can you confirm to us that 4 jihadists were released from prison to enable the release of the French hostage Serge Lazarevic?
Yes, we did it. And we've done it for Malians too before. Here it concerned a citizen who comes from a country that came to help us when our nation was in a critical situation. The authorities of his country were fighting to release the hostages. Mali, for its reputation and honor, could only help to save the life of the hostage.
Some Malians are now saying that they see that the life of a Malian is not worth as much as the life of a Frenchman. What do you say to these people?
We're not saying that one life is superior to another. All human beings are equal, but to save one life, we are ready to release several people. It's not the number of people you release that matters. It's the life that you save that is the most important thing. That is the message that we would like our fellow citizens to understand.
Now, in Burundi, this Friday marked the deadline to register to vote in the upcoming 2015 elections, but the opposition is calling for the whole process to be cancelled because it says it's been marred by systematic fraud. Duncan Woodside and Sarah Sacco bring us this report from Bujumbura.
It's a few hours before voter registration closes. The process has already been extended by 5 days due to a poor turnout throughout the country. These citizens are among the last to register.
I haven't had the time until today, but as I'm a responsible citizen, I came to register to vote with other Burundians.
I am Burundian. I have to be registered to see things working in this country.
The Electoral Commission hopes that 4.2 million people will register, but the total remained 800,000 short of that on Friday morning. In the streets of the capital, we found people who had decided not to participate.
I haven't registered because I see the political stage is divided.
I have no faith in this process. That's all. I see there's a lot of fraud.
The opposition alleges fabrication of identity cards is widespread.
After having noted all these irregularities, we're asking that the registration process is stopped so we can establish some real rules in order to get a credible electoral file.
The process has also been criticized by civil society activists and the Catholic Church, but the president of the Electoral Commission is unperturbed. While acknowledging irregularities, he claims that the overall process has not been compromised.
There's an ID issue in Burundi because IDs are a piece of paper, easy to copy. But there'll be a cleaning process in order to finalize the temporary electoral file.
The country now awaits the outcome of a ruling party congress convened to decide on its presidential candidate, a problematic subject for the president of Burundi, who appears keen to serve a new mandate. In March, the National Assembly rejected a constitutional reform which sought to circumvent a 2-term limit.
Heading to Zimbabwe now, where Vice President Emerson Mnangagwa was sworn in alongside another vice president. The 60-year-old is one of Mugabe's most trusted lieutenants and will retain his role as justice minister. This will likely strengthen his status as the leading candidate to succeed 90-year-old Robert Mugabe, who's been in power since the country's independence in 1980. Despite his age, Mugabe was re-elected unopposed as leader of his ZANU-PF party and is set to run in the 2018 elections. In Kenya, Parliament has backed a controversial security law. The bill would give authorities a wide range of powers to deal with terrorism. President Uhuru Kenyatta called it a necessity in the fight against Somali militant group Al-Shabaab. The opposition has criticized the move, saying it would jeopardize basic human rights. Sierra Leone won't be celebrating Christmas this year, at least in public. Authorities announced they were banning all public celebrations because of the ongoing Ebola epidemic. Soldiers will be deployed throughout the holidays to help enforce the ban. While Islam is the dominant religion, more than a quarter of the population is Christian, and public celebrations are common around Christmas time. Protesters in Togo are back in the streets. They're calling for constitutional change that would bar President Faure Gnassingbé from seeking a third term in next year's elections. The Gnassingbé family has ruled the country since the current president's father took over in 1967. Lance King and Emmanuel Soji report.
They came out dressed in red to express their anger and defy the ruling party. For 8 years, the opposition has been waiting for democratic reforms. They are calling for a limit of 2 5-year terms in office for the president. Opposition groups also want the presidential election to be carried out in 2 rounds.
We don't want a repeat of 2005. Faure Gnassingbé came to the throne in a bloodbath. We don't want that again in 2015.
The current head of state, Faure Gnassingbé, succeeded his father when he died. President Gnassingbé's father changed the constitution so he could stay in power for life.
We're fighting to bring back the constitution as it was in 1992. We're certain that when the constitution's re-established, Faure Gnassingbé will not have the right to run in the 2015 presidential election.
Gnassingbé will soon wrap up his 2nd term in office, and no reforms are in sight. In June, the government proposed a bill, but it was rejected by members of parliament in the ruling party.
We will stay in the streets until there are reforms.
There has been widespread tension in the West African country since mid-November. Opposition groups are eagerly awaiting Parliament's decision to vote on constitutional reform or not.
Former Burkina Faso strongman Blaise Compaoré has returned to Ivory Coast, the country he had fled to on October 31st with the help of the French army. At the time, many questioned France's involvement in African politics. Despite pledges by French presidents to put an end to the murky ties that link Paris to its former African colonies, many believe Françafrique is still alive and well. Nicolas Germain and Bangali Touré have this report.
During the presidential campaign, François Hollande, like Nicolas Sarkozy before him, promised to end Françafrique. It's the name given to the murky relationship between France and its former African colonies. It has in the past been symbolized by controversial characters like Jacques Foccart and Robert Bourgi. The activists from the SURVIE NGO stress in a new book that despite presidential pledges, Françafrique is still very much alive. The best example is the recent evacuation of Burkina Faso's President Blaise Compaoré by the French army.
It's the latest example of what the French authorities are ready to do to protect presidents who help them out. Blaise Compaoré was hated by many Burkina citizens. They toppled him in just 2 days. So clearly believing that this kind of head of state meant stability was the wrong analysis. France is not listening to the calls for democracy emerging in Africa.
Aujourd'hui, la France n'est pas à la mesure de l'enjeu des revendications démocratiques qui se posent en Afrique.
But France's Development Minister Annick Girardin justified Compaoré's evacuation.
Il s'agissait là d'éviter un bain de sang.
The aim was to prevent a bloodbath. We took our responsibilities, but in the end, that evacuation was anecdotal. The important thing is that the people, and especially the youth, could demand more democracy and freedom, and they said no to constitution changes.
The NGO SURVIE says a pillar of Françafrique is the CFA franc. It's the common currency shared by many former French colonies, which is highly dependent on decisions taken by the Bank of France. The CFA dates back to 1945, before these nations' independence, but Girardin defended its existence.
That is part of our history. With Africa, we have human relationships and economic ties. We defend our interests. We aren't ashamed. When we intervene in Africa, we do two things. We express our solidarity with our partners, and we defend our interests.
The SURVIE NGO and the French government will not agree on this issue. And it's a safe bet to say that during the 2017 presidential campaign, candidates from the left and the right will both vow once again to bring an end to Françafrique.
And that's all we have time for Africa News, but we'll be back in less than an hour. For now, there's more news coming right up on France 24.